I came home after a double shift at the hospital, and my 7-year-old daughter was missing. My mother looked me in the eye and said, "We voted. You don't get a say." My sister was already stripping my daughter's room like it was a hostile takeover. I stayed calm and said something that made them all go pale. The morning everything changed. At 11:03 a.m., I stood on the front step in my work shoes, keys still in my hand, and listened. Not for anything dramatic. I was listening for Cora, a cartoon theme song, little feet padding down the hallway, maybe a neighbor's child laughing from down the street. What I heard instead was something else entirely. Activity, voices, laughter. The bright, busy kind of energy that only ever fills this house when someone is about to ask me for something. My body was begging for sleep. My head was still full of fluorescent lights and beeping monitors. I had been on my feet so long that my bones felt like they had been rented out to someone else. But even through the exhaustion, I had been looking forward to this day. 2 hours of sleep, maybe 3 if I was lucky, and then the whole afternoon with Cora, bedtime together, a proper crash afterward. That was the plan. A simple, beautiful plan. I stepped inside, and my instincts immediately told me something was wrong. The house smelled like coffee and maple syrup, and I could hear my mother's bright, performative voice. The one she reserves for moments when she is trying to sell you on something you haven't agreed to yet. Then I saw my sister Allison in the hallway, in socks, hauling flattened boxes. A ring light box was propped against the wall, already opened and partially assembled. She looked up, smiled without showing her teeth, and said, "Oh, you're home," like I was the one interrupting. I did not smile back. I did not say hello. I did not ask about the boxes. I walked straight past her to Cora's room because I am a mother, not a guest in my own house. I pushed the door open and stopped so fast my shoulder hit the frame. The room looked like it had been hit by a polite, deliberate tornado. Cora's bed was stripped down to the mattress. Her blanket, the one she absolutely refuses to sleep without, the one she has dragged everywhere since she was 3, was folded and shoved into a laundry basket like it was an inconvenience. Her stuffed bunny was sitting upright on the dresser, turned to face the wall, as if even it had been punished. The rug was rolled halfway up. The walls were bare in patches where her drawings and little posters used to be, small crayon suns and her name in purple marker, all of it gone. Painter's tape was stuck along the baseboards. A measuring tape was stretched across the floor, and on the desk sat a neat stack of printed photos, inspiration images, all beige and white and aggressively adult. This was not cleaning. This was not tidying. This was repurposing. This was your child doesn't live here anymore, so her room is now available. My throat tightened. I turned in a slow circle, half expecting her to be hiding behind something, playing a game. "Cora," I called softly. "Nothing." I stepped further into the room. The closet door was open. Her backpack was gone. My hands went cold. "We voted." I turned back into the hallway. Allison was leaning against the wall with the relaxed posture of someone who has not yet realized the ground is shifting beneath her feet. "Where is she?" I asked. Allison blinked at me with practiced innocence. "Where's who?" "Where is my daughter?" Before she could answer, my mother's voice floated cheerfully from the kitchen, the tone of someone offering pancakes, not someone who has just made a unilateral decision about a child's life. "Oh, honey, come in here." I did not move. "Where is Cora?" Footsteps. My mother appeared at the end of the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel like she was in a television commercial for domestic contentment. My father stood behind her, arms already crossed. Allison shifted beside me, suddenly very interested in her fingernails. I repeated myself one more time. "Where is Cora?" My mother smiled, tight, bright, rehearsed. "We voted," she said. I stared at her. "You what?" She lifted her chin. "We voted, you don't get a say." I felt the world go quiet, like someone had turned down the volume on everything except my own heartbeat. "You voted," I repeated slowly, because my brain genuinely refused to process it at normal speed. "About what?" My father uncrossed and recrossed his arms. "It's been discussed." "It's been—" I let out a short, breathless sound that did not contain a single drop of humor. "You held a vote about my child." My mother's expression hardened into something righteous and immovable. "You're never here, Hannah. You work all the time." "I work," I said, "because bills don't care about feelings. Now, where is she?" Allison chimed in, casual as a weather report. "She's with her dad." The air in my chest simply vanished. "With Stephen," I said, and it came out completely flat. My mother nodded like she had just solved a simple math problem. "Where she's supposed to be." My hands tingled. My 7-year-old barely knows him. "He's still her father," my dad said. "Biologically," I replied, and my voice stayed calm in the dangerous, precise way that calm sounds when someone is holding something very heavy and trying not to drop it. My mother sighed like I was exhausting her. "We had to make a decision. You don't have the outside perspective. You're too close to it." "I'm her mother," I said. "That is the perspective." Allison stepped forward, gesturing down the hallway with the confidence of a real estate agent. "Besides, we need that room. I work from home now. I need an office, a proper studio. You cannot film content with a child running around." I stared at her. "You need Cora's room." She did not flinch. "I need the space." I looked from Allison to my mother. "You're turning my daughter's room into a content studio." My mother said, without a trace of apology, "We can't have a child disrupting everything in this house." "Disrupting," I repeated quietly. "My daughter existing." My father added, as if it were the most logical thing in the world, "And you can't take care of her properly. You're always at work. So why are you acting shocked?" Something cold and crystal clear settled into place inside me. Not anger exactly, something sharper, more permanent than anger. Something that makes decisions. I took a slow breath. Then I turned around and walked to the bathroom. Not because I was running away. Because if I stayed in that hallway for one more second, I was going to say things that would set the whole house on fire, and I needed that fire later in the right place, at the right moment. I locked the door. I stared at myself in the mirror, work-worn face, tired eyes, the expression of a woman who has spent years trying to be reasonable with unreasonable people. I put both hands on the sink and breathed. In, out, in, out. Then I unlocked the door and stepped back into the hallway. They were still talking, still justifying, still behaving as though they were some kind of committee with authority over my life. I walked toward them, calm, steady, but different. Different in a way they could feel before I even opened my mouth. I looked at all three of them and said, quietly and without hesitation, "I want you out of my house within 30 days, all of you." The hallway went so still, I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. My mother blinked at me like I had just announced I was moving to another planet. My father's mouth opened once and closed again. Allison's confident little smile shattered completely. "What do you mean?" my mother snapped. "What are you talking about?" my father added louder, as if volume could rewrite reality. I did not answer. I did not argue. I walked to my room because there is a very particular kind of power in not explaining yourself to people who have never once explained themselves to you. Their voices followed me like background noise. "That's not your house," my mother called after me. "That's ours." My father barked, "Don't speak to your parents like that." My mother added, "We made the difficult decision for you." And Allison, voice sharp with sudden panic, "It's the right thing to do." I kept moving. I took off my work shoes. I grabbed my bag, my phone, my keys. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser and took out the folder I had been avoiding for years. The one filled with paperwork. The one that proved exactly what was and was not just a formality. I slid it into my bag without looking at it too long. Because if I did, I would remember every single moment I had swallowed my doubts to protect people who were not protecting me. I walked back out. They were waiting, watching me with expressions that had shifted from smug certainty to something unsteady and uncertain. "I will be sending you legal papers shortly," I said. "I want you out of this house." My mother froze, genuinely this time, not performatively. My father snapped, "You can't do that." Allison turned to him with rising panic in her voice. "Can she do that? What does she mean?" I walked out the front door. No yelling, no scene, No dramatic farewell speech, just a clean, quiet exit. And behind me, I heard it, the scramble, the rapid shift from smug certainty to panicked calculation. Background, how we got here. Watching their faces shift pulled me backward through time, because this did not start that morning. It started when I was a child. My sister Allison is 2 years younger than me. 2 years is nothing now. But in our house growing up, it functioned like a crown. Allison was the favorite, not in the obvious way where parents say it out loud and let you confront it. They did it the quiet, deniable way. Allison was special. I was helpful. Allison was creative. I was responsible. If Allison cried, my mother moved like an emergency alarm had gone off. If I cried, my father would say flatly, "You're fine." So I learned how to be fine. I learned how to be useful. I learned how to anticipate what they needed before they asked for it, because if you make yourself useful enough, you get to stay. Even as a little girl, I could feel what they wanted from me, not gone exactly, but quietly, conveniently out of the way. I became a nurse because nursing makes sense to me. There is a problem, you address it. Someone is in pain, you help them. You do not hold a meeting to vote on whether they deserve care. Then I met Stephen. He was charming the way people are when they know exactly how to be charming, funny, easy, the kind of person who makes you lower your guard before you realize you have. I got pregnant. Stephen went quiet. Then he said, flat and clear as someone choosing a side dish at dinner, "I don't want kids." I was young enough to think love might fix that. I was also old enough to know I was not ending my pregnancy because a man wanted to stay comfortably irresponsible. So I had Cora. Stephen held her once, briefly, awkwardly, like she was fragile and unfamiliar and belonged to someone else. After that, he faded. He didn't show up for the hard parts. He didn't show up for the ordinary parts either. He would appear a few times a year, say, "Hey, kiddo," take a photo like proof of life, and vanish again. We never went to court, not because I didn't believe in paperwork, but because you cannot negotiate custody with someone who treats fatherhood like an optional subscription service. So Cora lived with me. When she was about 5, I had a job that worked, not glamorous, not impressive, but functional. Part-time hours, predictable shifts, the kind of schedule that lets a single mother do daycare pickup without sprinting through a parking lot. Money was tighter, yes, but Cora was safe. I was present. I could breathe. And then I was offered the position that nurses actually want. Better pay, real career advancement, the kind of opportunity that does not come around twice. The catch was the schedule, brutal hours, frequent doubles, the kind of demanding role that looks excellent on paper and quietly dismantles your personal life if you do not have reliable support at home. My first instinct was to say no. I mentioned it casually to my parents, more thinking out loud than asking for anything. And that is when they performed a sudden, enthusiastic emotional reversal, so dramatic it should have come with warning lights. Because before that conversation, they were not warm with Cora. Not openly cruel, nothing you could point to clearly and name, but distant. She was like a guest's child who might spill something. They also had never shown genuine interest in my career. So when my mother suddenly said, "You have to take it," I genuinely thought I had misheard. "You can move in here. We'll help. We're retired. We can do the child care. You cannot pass this up." My father nodded. Allison, who was still living at home as an adult, said, "It's a one-time opportunity. You'd be stupid to turn it down." It was suspicious, and eventually the real reason surfaced. They were about to lose the house. Their home, the place they treated like a throne, the center of their identity, was drowning in debt. Approximately $68,000 in unsecured debt. Roughly $19,000 behind on the mortgage and property taxes. Their credit was wrecked. They could not refinance. They could not borrow. They could not fix it themselves. My stable, better-paying job was their lifeline, and they had decided to use me to grab it. They sat me down like they were presenting a business plan. "We need you to sign some things," my mother said. "What things?" I asked, already feeling my skin prickle. "A loan. In your name," my father said. My stomach dropped. "It's temporary," my mother added quickly. "We'll pay you back." Allison smiled like she was letting me in on a clever trick. "Your credit is good, ours is not." Then came the part they tried to slip in like a minor administrative detail. "The house would need to be transferred into your name." my mother said, speaking too quickly. Just for the paperwork, it's just a formality. A formality. They wanted me to absorb the liability, carry the debt, risk my financial future, and still expected to retain all the power. I did not like it. I did not trust it. But I could not watch them lose the house. And this is the part that still makes me angry at myself. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe the rest of it was real. The child care, the we love having Cora here, the sudden warmth and enthusiasm. So I said yes. I put in approximately $24,000 of my own savings up front. I took on a monthly house payment of about $2,350 in my name. I signed what they put in front of me. The house was transferred into my name, and they called it a formality. At first, the arrangement held. They handled child care. I worked. Cora adjusted. Then the paperwork cleared, the house was safe, the crisis was resolved. And it was as though the deal simply ceased to exist. Suddenly, I was dumping my child on them. Suddenly, my job was a bad choice. Suddenly, I was never here, as though they had not personally insisted I take that exact schedule. Allison began complaining most loudly about noise, about needing space, about content creation being impossible with a child in the house. Cora became the problem. Too loud, too present, too inconvenient. My parents backed Allison the way they always had, instinctively, completely, without question. The comments began, "Well, there is a dad. Why isn't she with him more? You can't rely on us forever." I did not take it seriously, because Stephen was not a father in any meaningful sense, and because I genuinely could not believe my parents would act on the hints they were dropping. I thought it was control, pressure, empty threats designed to make me more compliant. Until I came home at 11:03 a.m. after a double shift, and found my daughter's room being dismantled like she had never existed there. Finding Cora. In the car, my hands were steady on the wheel. My heart was not. I called Stephen. No answer. Voicemail, of course. I drove anyway because sitting still would have turned into spiraling, and spiraling does not bring your child back. I called again. Nothing. So I did the next thing. I called his mother. Susan picked up on the first ring. Her voice was cold and ready, like she had been expecting this call. "Do you know where Cora is?" I asked, and I heard the crack in my own voice despite trying to prevent it. "My parents said she's with Stephen, but he isn't answering. Is she okay?" "She will stay with us," Susan said, flat, final, like a verdict. "And you are not getting her back." I blinked. "What?" "She's fine," Susan said, "but you are not getting her back." Then she hung up. No explanation, no warning, just a click like closing a file. I stared at my phone for half a second. Then I turned the car around so fast my tires chirped against the pavement. When I arrived at Susan and David's house, I knocked like I was trying to knock the dishonesty right out of the door. Susan opened it a few inches, not welcoming inches. The kind that say I can shut this the moment you give me a reason. I did not bother with pleasantries. "Where's Cora?" Susan looked at me, scrubs, messy hair, the visible exhaustion of someone running on fumes and adrenaline, and did not soften. If anything, she looked more certain. "She's here," Susan said. Relief hit fast, immediately followed by her next sentence. "And you're not getting her back." "Excuse me." "Your parents brought her," Susan said. "They said you knew." "I didn't know," I said. "I came home and she was gone." Susan's expression did not shift. "They said you wanted her with Stephen." A short, humorless breath escaped me. "Stephen won't even answer his phone." That landed. Not kindness exactly, more like a flicker of something, like the name had pressed on an old bruise. Behind Susan, a floorboard creaked. Her husband David appeared in the hallway, arms crossed, face completely unreadable. He did not move closer. He just watched, measuring. "Is she okay?" I asked, adding how careful my own voice sounded. "She's safe," Susan said. "Let me see her." Susan's hand stayed on the door. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I pressed it down deliberately, nurse mode, controlled, clear. "I'm not here to debate," I said. "I'm here for my daughter." Susan's eyes narrowed slightly. "You should have come with her." "I didn't send her," I said. My parents did that behind my back. A silence followed, not peaceful, but calculating. David's gaze shifted subtly, like he was quietly fact-checking my story against what he had been told. People say anything when they want something, Susan said evenly. Then don't take my word for it, I replied. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held the screen toward her. One glance was enough, missed calls to Stephen, stacked one after another. The call to Susan, the timestamps. I called him, no answer, I called you, you hung up. Susan did not look at the phone for long, but David did. Just a flick of the eyes like he could not help himself. Ask Cora what she was told, I said quietly. Susan's jaw tightened. David held still for a long moment. Then he spoke, almost carefully, like he was trying not to show what he was thinking. Was she upset when she arrived? Susan's eyes flashed at him briefly, but she answered, yes. I nodded once. Then you already know something is wrong. The house behind them was very quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin prick because it means someone small is sitting very still and waiting. Susan's grip on the door did not loosen, but David shifted just enough to open a space. Come in, he said, not warm, just letting me through. I stepped inside, and then I saw her. Cora was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup in front of her. Her shoulders were hunched. Her hands were wrapped around the cup like it was the only solid thing available. She looked small in a way that made everything inside me go completely still. Cora, I breathed. Her eyes lifted to mine. She did not run. She did not smile. She stared at me like she was trying to determine whether I was real. I crossed the room and knelt beside her. Hi, baby, I said softly and wrapped my arms around her. She did not hug me back. She stayed stiff, arms at her sides, like she did not yet trust the moment. My chest tightened painfully. I pulled back just enough to see her face. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying the way children usually cry. She had already cried and run out of room for it. Then her voice came out small and broken. Grandma said you didn't want me. My throat closed completely. I looked up briefly towards Susan and David, standing in the doorway, guarded and silent, watching for the verdict. Then I looked back at my daughter. Honey, I said, and my voice shook despite everything. She lied. Cora's lip trembled. She said you told them. She said you were tired of me. My eyes burned. I came home, I said, as carefully as I could, choosing every word like it was the only thing holding her together. I came home and you weren't there. I had been looking forward to spending the whole day with you. The minute I found out where you were, I drove as fast as I could. Cora's eyes searched mine. You didn't tell them, she whispered. You didn't tell them to bring me here because you don't want me. Never, I said, and my voice broke on the word. Not in a million years. Her shoulders sagged slowly. Then, cautiously, her arms lifted and wrapped around me. Not tight, not instantly, careful and tentative, like someone testing ground they are not sure will hold. I held her like the world had already proven it could not be fully trusted, and I was the exception. Behind us, David cleared his throat. We thought you didn't want her, Susan said, her voice stiff with something that was not quite apology but was moving in that direction. I do, I said. David spoke lower, more direct. We don't approve of how Stephen has handled his responsibilities. He paused. When we believed a child was being handed over like she was unwanted, we were willing to take her without hesitation. Susan nodded once, still rigid. We weren't going to let her bounce around. I absorbed that, not as trust, not as immediate comfort, as information. A crack in the wall placed late, but placed where it belonged. I stood, keeping one hand on Cora's shoulder. I'm taking her, I said. Susan did not argue. David did not block the door. They watched us leave. Cora held my hand so tightly in the car that it hurt. I let it hurt because it meant she was there. New plan. I did not take Cora back to the house. Not after what I had seen in her room. Not after what my mother had told her. I drove us to a hotel. Beige walls, neutral carpet, the kind of place designed to be emotionally forgettable. Perfect. Cora climbed onto the bed with her shoes still on and stared at the television without turning it on. I sat beside her and exhaled slowly. "Okay," I said softly. "New plan." She looked at me, eyes wary. "Are we safe?" That question hit like a punch to the chest. I reached for her hand. "Yes," I said. "We are safe." Then I did what I always do when everything is falling apart. I started handling it. I called my charge nurse. "Family emergency, I need time off." No one in a hospital asks for a full explanation when your voice sounds like that. "Take what you need," she said. "We'll cover." I hung up and looked at my daughter, and the part of me that had been quiet for too long under layers of exhaustion and people-pleasing stood up fully and stretched. Food first, a warm bath, clean pajamas, her favorite show on the television, my hand on her back while she slowly, reluctantly fell asleep. I did not unload my rage on her. I did not hand her my fear to carry. I just kept repeating the only things that mattered. "You're with me. I've got you. No one gets to move you around without my say." She fell asleep curled against my side, clinging even in her sleep, afraid I might disappear. When her breathing finally evened out, I checked my phone. Missed calls, so many of them. My mother, my father, Allison. Texts, too, angry and confused and demanding, as though I owed them explanations for consequences they had created themselves. I did not respond to any of them. In the morning, I called a law firm and scheduled a meeting. The folder that changed everything. 2 days later, I sat across from Mr. Brown in a quiet office that smelled like coffee and polished wood. He had the calm, professional face of a man who had seen family dysfunction up close for years and had long stopped being surprised by it. I slid the folder across his desk, the documents I had taken when I left, the ones that proved what was and was not just a formality. Mr. Brown flipped through them slowly and carefully. Then he looked up. "The house is legally yours," he said. My lungs loosened, like they had been tight for years, without my noticing. "You can absolutely pursue eviction," he continued. "I'll prepare the notices and begin the process." "Do it," I said. His pen moved across paper. "They'll be angry," he noted. I let out a dry, quiet laugh. They were angry when they voted my daughter out of her own room. At least this time, their anger comes with a legal stamp. The hospital confrontation. 2 days after the legal notices were delivered, I was in the hallway near the nurse's station at work when I heard my name called, not by a colleague, but in the demanding, entitled tone that had followed me my whole life. I turned. There they were, my mother and father in the hospital, waving the eviction papers like evidence of a crime. My mother's face was red with fury. My father looked like he had been chewing on anger for 48 straight hours. They marched to the desk and began raising their voices. Patients looked over. Staff stiffened. A security guard down the hallway started paying very close attention. I stepped forward before it became a full scene. 5 minutes, I said, clipped and clean. That is all you get. My mother hissed, "Oh, now you have limits." I led them to a side corridor near an empty consultation room, close enough that staff could see me, far enough that my unit did not have to witness the performance. My father shoved the papers toward me. "Explain this." My mother's voice climbed. "How dare you send lawyers after us? You scammed us. You stole our house." I blinked slowly. "I stole it." "You used a loophole," she spat. "You planned this. You betrayed your own parents." I kept my voice flat, hospital calm, the steady voice of someone whose hands need to stay steady. "You begged me to do it," I said. "You were $68,000 in unsecured debt, $19,000 behind on the mortgage and taxes. You couldn't refinance. Your credit was ruined. I put in $24,000 of my own savings. I took on a monthly payment of $2,350 in my name, with my credit, with my future on the line." My mother's eyes flashed. "And you're throwing that in our faces." "No," I said. "I'm putting it back where it belongs." My father stepped closer. "We're your parents." I looked at him and I felt something settle into place inside me. Clean, final, irreversible. "You stopped being my parents," I said quietly, "the moment you voted my daughter out." My mother's voice rose higher. We made the difficult decision for you. You made it for yourselves, I said. For Allison's studio, for your comfort, for control. My mother flinched. You sent my child to a man she barely knows, I continued. You told her I didn't want her. You told a 7-year-old child that her mother was tired of her. My father's eyes flicked away for half a second. Good, that meant he knew. You do not get access to Cora, I said. Not now, not ever. Their voices climbed again. Accusations, panic, outrage, the same old noises designed to push me back into my designated role. I took one step backward and nodded to the security guard standing in the hallway. I'm done, I said simply. You've used your 5 minutes. My mother started to protest. Security stepped in calmly and professionally. They were escorted out, still shouting, still trying to pull me back into the version of myself I used to be. That version was gone. I watched them disappear through the doors, heart pounding, hands trembling slightly, spine straight. Power is not loud. Power is leaving. As I turned back toward my unit, one thought landed with complete clarity. They thought they could vote my daughter out. I voted them out instead. A month later, my mother, father, and Allison had moved out.